And the Lord struck the Pharaoh and all his household with great plagues, because Sarai was the wife of Abraham. And the Pharaoh called Abraham and told him, "What is this that you did to me? Why did you not reveal to me that this was your wife? And why did you say this is my sister, and offer her to me for a wife? Look, pay attention, now fetch your wife and get out of here." Basically, be like a tree and leave. And the Pharaoh, the king, commanded his men to send him and his wife away together with everything he gained. So he profited from that, right? Material wise, etc., as it states here. Herd animals, sheep, goats, cattle that they gained. Okay, so that's Breetah 12, Breetah or Genesis 12. Now we're going to jump to 13. And Abraham went out of Egypt, 13:1, literal Aramaic idiomatic expression, went up from Egypt. We left basically. He and his wife and everything he had, and Lot with him, his nephew, and headed south. And Abraham got very wealthy with flocks, silver and gold from the king of Egypt, right? And he took up his settlements from the south up to Bethel. It's the house of God. Okay? Remember Bethlehem? Okay. That's God's house, or house God. Right? Let's say in English terms, the house of God. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the term, right? So he goes to this land that's called Bethel, place of God probably, up to the country where he pitched his tent in the times of old between Bethel and Beth-ai, to the country where he first built the altar in Genesis 12, or Breetah 12. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord, El. And also Lot, his nephew, who went with Abraham, had flocks and bulls and plenty of good tents. Well, he obviously shared it out with his nephew, didn't he? And the land was not sufficient for both of them. They couldn't both stay there and inhabit together, because their flocks could not be separated, and so they could not stay together. It's like your animals would cross over into the other person's lot of animals, and then you wouldn't know, hey, which is my animal, you know. So you'd lose some of your herd. Okay, so they separated. And there was talk between the shepherds of Abraham and those of Lot, and besides the Canaanites and the Perizzites who were still inhabiting the land. So they were dealing with not only their lot, or their people, the shepherds of Abraham and those of Lot, probably squabbling with each other, and also these pre-Egyptians, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, who were in that, occupying that land, some area of that land as well. And Abraham said to Lot, "There should not be talk between you and me." He's probably, he's basically saying to his nephew, we shouldn't be talking, okay, about my herds, my shepherding and your shepherding, for we are men or brothers. Okay? We are basically of the same nation, right? Same kin. Okay, even though obviously he is, because he's his nephew, right? Yeah. So we shouldn't be squabbling like this. We should have this understanding. Okay. So he says to Lot, "Look at all the land before you. Now split up from me, depart from me. If you choose right, I'll choose left, and if you choose left, I'll choose right." Footnote indication. 13:9. Note: Abraham acted unselfishly and allowed God's will over his will. Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Pussycat. Okay, just walked in front of my screen. Okay. So they decided to split, right? If Lot wanted to go left, he'd go left, and Abraham would go right, Abraham would go right. If he wanted to go right, Abraham would go left, in that geographical location. And Lot raised his eyes and gazed at all the land of the Jordan River, and he saw that there were streams everywhere. This was before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was like God's paradise, and like the land of Egypt as at the entrance of Syria. So it was like, so Egypt in those days was like beautiful, splendid, right? Like, wow. Okay. So that area there was basically the same that this Lot, Abraham's nephew, could see. This is before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was like God's paradise, Garden of Eden, and like the land of Egypt at the entrance of Syria. And Lot took for himself all the land of the Jordan River, and so Lot went eastward and split off as a man from his brother. So he became this man, you know, he became an alpha male or whatever. He did his thing and moved off, and he was on his own. He was a grown man, so he had all this responsibility, etc. Upon him, right? He wasn't under Abraham's guidance anymore, or authority or whatever. Abraham settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot settled in the tent villages stretching up to Sodom. The men of Sodom were wicked and bad sinners before the Lord. So, they were doing all these wicked things, etc. And God obviously didn't approve of that. And the Lord said to Abraham, after Lot split up with him, raise your eyes, lift up your eyes, have a look at the land you're in, to the west and to the south, to the east and to the north. Because all the land that you see, I, God, give to you and your offspring, or your descendants, your sons, your daughters, and their sons and daughters, and their sons and daughters, the descendants, to the end of time. Forever, right? 13:15, literal Aramaic idiomatic expression, to the end of the universe. So this Canaan possibly became part of Israel. Eventually became part of Israel. And I shall make your seed, or your descendants, your sons, your daughters, and their descendants, like the sand on the earth. And who can count the sand on the earth? Okay? You go to the beach, try to count each grain of sand. That's how many descendants, etc. he'd have. That if you can count the sand on the earth, then you can also count offspring. So he had thousands, millions of them probably. Rise and wander in the land to the extent of its length and its width, for I have given it all to you, basically. And Abraham came, entered and settled among the chestnut trees of Mamre and the Amorites, Mamre of the Amorites, who lived in Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. So this was their land given Abraham to the end of the universe. So it's officially theirs. Genesis 14. His descendants, right? Who would that be? It would be the Hebrews, the Jews, the Israelites, right? The true ones. Okay. Genesis 14. And it happened, Breetah or Genesis 14. And it happened during the days of King Amraphel of Sumer, King Arioch of Dalsar, King Chedorlaomer of Elam, and King Te'il of Goim. There's a footnote indication there. It's like Goim. Not really sure now. So I have a look at the footnote. 14.1. Literal Aramaic name Gilayeh. Most of the names as the names in the following verses are transliterated poorly in English. It's a challenge to try and find the true reading of these names and compare them to the cuneiform tablets of that period. 3,000-year-old or more cuneiform tablets. So he's used those to translate from, right? He had that ability. Wow. It's outside the scope of this project and not essential to an understanding of the story of this segment of scripture. Let's have a look at that again. Most of the names as names in the following verses are translated poorly in English. It's a challenge, by Nimrud Alexander, it was a challenge to try and find the true reading of these names and compare them to the cuneiform tablets of that period. 3,000 years older, right? So it was outside the scope of Victor Alexander and his project, translation project, at the time, and he deemed it not really essential to an understanding of the story of this segment of scriptures. Okay, so don't dwell on it too much, he's basically saying. And it happened during the days of King, etc., etc. All of them gathered in the basin of Sodom in that sea of salt. For 12 years they were under the command of Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they were mustered, they were gathered together, right? So, could that have been that basin of Sodom connected to the Dead Sea? Because that's basically a Dead Sea of salt, right? Maybe. In that day. In the 14th year there came Chedorlaomer and the kings with him, and struck the giants in the outlying villages of Ka'ornaim and its inhabitants, the village district of Shoah. So we're there, like these 7-foot to 13-foot giants still roaming around in those different regions. Possibly. And he conquered the Hurrians of the mountain up to the chestnut tree of Paran in the wilderness. This is what this king did. And they turned back and came to Ain Dana. Footnote indication here. Have a look at that. 14:7. Literal Aramaic name retained. Shpat. 14:7. The giants here. Okay, here's the other names to Ain Dana. There's Kadesh, and then King of Sodom. Where are we? Ain Gad. What was this one? 17. 14:17. Was it? No. 14:7. That's why we missed it. Okay, so these are the names of those places. Mishpat and Hazazon Tamar. And there went out the kings of Sodom and the kings of Gomorrah and the king of Admah and the king of Zeboim and the king of Bela and Syria and Aingad. And there went out the kings of Sodom, etc., etc., and they made war in the basin of Sodom with the king Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of the Goim, Amraphel, king of Sumer, and Arioch, king of Delasar. 4 kings against 5. And the basin of Sodom was inundated with tar pits. So it would have been like probably bubbling, black ooze, right? This tar that they used. If they cooled it down, they'd probably use it for mortar, for bricks and all that sort of stuff. And the king, as the men at the Tower of Babel did, and the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah fled and fell there. This army chased them and mowed them down, killed them there, right? And those who were spared fled to the mountains. Whoever managed to run faster and get away, right? They went to the mountains. And they carried off all the flocks of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, and they went. And they fetched Lot, the brother of Abraham, and all his flocks, and went with them, as he had settled in Sodom. So everybody that was there, basically, he was one of them. Let's go. Come on. Got to go to safety up in the mountains. It's not safe for us here anymore. And there came those who escaped and saw Abraham the Hebrew. So him being the one that crossed over with Eber, etc., etc., they obviously merged. So he went from Chaldean to Hebrew. It became this Hebrew people because they crossed over. Right? They became the Awer. As he was encamped by the chestnut of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Anna and Eshcol, who were the allies of Abraham. So they were basically buddy, right? Friendly with them. And Abraham heard that his brother Lot was taken hostage. It means brother. It's really his nephew. It means brother in the term that they're of the same nation. Right? Remember the argument or the talk that they had? We shouldn't be arguing over my animals and your animals because we're of the same clan, same kin, right? We're related. Okay. So let's not do that. And Abraham heard that his brother, or rather nephew Lot, was taken hostage, and he armed 300 young boys of his house and took off after them up to Dan. And he split off his forces and attacked them in the night. 15. It's not there. 14, 15. Literal Aramaic idiomatic expression, he divided against them. Yeah. Let's see. 14:10, 14:13, 14:15. 14:10, literal Aramaic idiomatic expression. They were defeated there. These people, this army, so they fled, took everybody with them. 14:13, literal Aramaic idiomatic expression. Husbands of Abraham's stance. It's kind of an Eastern expression. Maybe it's a little hard to understand, but it's basically something like these descendants of Abraham, possibly, right? His sons, or their sons. Kind of confused about. Yes, basically that. 15, literal Aramaic idiomatic expression. He divided against them. So he. Where are we? 14, 15. Okay, so Abraham splits his forces. You go that way. We go that way. You go that way. Whatever. Them in the night. He split off for his forces and attacked them in the night, he and his forces, and he defeated them and drove them out as far as Horeb. which is on the left side of Damascus. And he returned with all the flocks, and also with Lot and all his flocks, and also the woman and the people. So he gained all this again, right? He had his nephew and his flocks and all these other people with him, right? So they became even larger as a tribal clan group. And the king of Sodom went out to greet him after return, as he had fought Chedorlaomer and the kings with him in his consecrated valley. This is the blessed valley, that valley of kings. Valley of Kings. Okay, is that the Valley of Kings, Egypt? Ancient Kemet related? Possibly. And the righteous king, the king of peace, brought out bread and wine, and he was the king priest of the God Most High. So let's have a look at that. 18 and 19. (14:18:1) Aramaic name Melchizedek. Whoever among the kings that did the will of God. First mention of righteous king in scriptures. 14:18:2. First mention of the king priest in the scriptures. So he was this king high priest, right? He was the man. Okay, it's not saying here that it's Christ in human form or anything like that. This is actually probably a real guy called Melchizedek, and Christ became like him, okay, in heaven, right? He's the high priest of heaven. Okay. So someone made a comment and says, "Oh, how do you know that what you're saying is not an angel of the Lord?" Right? Well, there you go. We just solved it. Okay. For Zechariah 3:1, etc. Okay. Zechariah has a vision, and he sees this person wearing his garments covered in blood, because he's looking into the future, right? The prophesying of Christ coming and dying on a cross, being scourged, all that sort of stuff, his garments covered in blood, or his body covered in blood. He's dressed in these garments, i.e. this blood, right? And he's told this, he sees that this other angel is told, take those garments off him, those bloody garments off him, and put on pure white garments or whatever, right? Because he's righteous. He's the high priest. So it's not an angel, okay? It's Christ himself, the Son of God, Yeshua Mashiach, right? The manifestation, the Milta of God, right? The Son of God. So that's basically the answer to that person that maybe of late or quite a while ago asked us that question. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abraham by the Most High God, the ruler of heaven and earth. And blessed be that Most High God who delivered your enemies into your hands, who has given titles by everyone." Or tithes, sorry. They had to make payments, right? They all made payments to him. And blessed be that Most High God who delivered your enemies into your hands, who has given tithes by everyone. And the king of Sodom said to Abraham, "Give me the souls," or those beings, "and the flocks that you wish." And Abraham said to the king of Sodom, "I raise my hand to God Most High, whose flocks are the heavens and the earth," and all that's contained in them, right? On both, and both. "Lest I take something, whether it be a thread of or the soul of the sandal from anything that belongs to you, so you will not say that I've made Abraham rich. Excluding what my boys ate, and the favours returned to the men that went with me, and their Eshcol and Mamre, their favours shall be returned according to what they decide." Yeah. Maybe that's to do with whatever they gave him as tithing, they would be paid back. Something like that, right? Because they gave it willingly, or because they chose to give him that. Breetah, or Genesis 15. After these replies, there came the reply of the Lord in a vision, probably to Abraham, and he told him, "Do not succumb, Abraham. I am your restorer. Your compensation shall be great indeed." Okay, don't open yourself up to whatever, because I am your restorer. Your compensation shall be great indeed. His reward. And Abraham said, "Lord God, what will you give me? Here I go childless, and Eliezer of Damascus, after I leave my home, shall inherit everything," because he had no heir, he had no older child, okay, to pass everything on to become the head chief of the descendants to come, that lineage, right? And Abraham added, "Behold, you did not give me a son, so as he may inherit my house after me." exactly what we see. And the Lord said to him, he will not be the one who inherits, except it will be your own son, the offspring from your own seed, or your own grains, of your own loins. Okay, you can check that out. We've had a look at it before in another footnote, so we basically know it means grains. Okay, so where are we? 15:4. Idiomatic expression, your son who emerges from your back, from your hard work, your labour, basically from your involvement with your wife, right? To put it nicely. Yeah. Your son, your offspring. And he took him outside and said to him, God moved him along outside, took him outside and said to him, look at the sky and count the stars, if you can count them, as he said before, if you can count the number of people, like you can count, if you can count the grains of sand on a shore, right, then you'd be able to add up all the numbers of the people, you know, that you're going to have as your descendants, etc., etc. And he told him, this is how your offspring will be. You have so many, right, to come in the future, i.e. the Hebrews, Israelites, the Jews, the real ones, right, the authentic ones. And Abraham believed in God, and it rendered him righteous. And he said to him, I am the God who sent you out of Ur of the Chaldees, so as to give you this to inherit, this land, these peoples, etc. And Abraham said, Lord God, by what sign will I know that I have inherited it? And God took all of... Okay, and God told him, take for yourself a virgin calf, or a baby calf, right? A virgin ram, a virgin goat, a pigeon, and a dove. These never had offspring, okay? They're still young, right? And he took all of these and he divided them equally, and he set each member opposite its companion, but the birds he did not divide. And the bird descended on the bodies, and Abraham waved it away. Probably some sort of vulture or scavenger trying to get down there and pick at them, right? Maybe it was a sacrifice of some sort. And the bird descended on the bodies, and Abraham waved it away. The sun set in the west, and a calm fell upon Abraham, and behold, a feeling of submission and a great darkness came upon him. And he said to Abraham, know this well. This is what God said to him. Know this well. Learn this well. (15:13) Literal Aramaic idiomatic figure of speech, knowingly know. In other words, this will you just, you'll know. You'll realise it, right? Okay. Kind of a weird expression, translation of an expression, Eastern expression, mindset, but that's basically it. You'll know, right? You'll have that knowledge. 15:13:2. Note the preparation of the nation of believers who will come to understand the suffering of Christ to come, right? They will be humiliated by the world, by its power and wealth. The Jews will then go on to preach the gospel to all the nations. Their 400 years of trial will be echoed by the 40 days of Jesus in the wilderness. So these specific Jews, as it states here, would go on to preach the gospel to all nations, i.e. the disciples who went to the different lands, India, China, Japan, wherever, Paul the apostle, etc., and they preached the gospel of God, of Christ, to all the nations, or the Gentiles, etc. Their 400 years of trial will be echoed by the 40 days of Jesus in the wilderness. That's very similar. He went through a lot of tribulation because the devil was on his face, on his back, So it's making a comparison there by the looks of it. Whatever happened to the Lord, Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, within that desert, we know very little. There could have been more things that were thrown at him by the devil and so forth. And God said to Abraham, know this well, that your offspring will reside in a land that is not their own. So they'll probably reside in foreign lands occupied by others. And they shall humiliate them for 400 years. So he's probably talking about them going into Egypt, being slaves by these Egyptians, under these Egyptians. That's a prophecy, right? And also the nation that humiliates them I will judge, Egypt, and your offspring will later exit with great flocks. When God liberated the Egyptians, the Hebrews, the Israelites from Egypt, via Moses, they came out with all these things, right? The Egyptians, as they left, they gave them like cattle, herds, whatever. They gave them all this gold clothing, all that sort of stuff. So, on their way out. And also the nation that humiliates them I will judge. God will judge, which he did. And your offspring will later exit with great flocks. But you shall live contently with your ancestors in peace, and shall be buried with the grace of old age. So he dies and he gets probably buried next to his wife, Sarah, in a tomb at Mamre or something like that, whatever the scripture says. But you shall live contently with your ancestors in peace, and shall be buried with the grace of old age. And after 4 centuries they will return here, where Abraham was at the time, because they will not yet have given up the pleasures of the Amorites. So they were following what the Amorites are up to. Were they the vicious, wicked, and so forth?